live.
Good evening, good afternoon, wherever you find yourself in this weird, wild, wacky world of ours, and welcome to the exciting installment of Dragons in Dublin. This evening's scene sees Mr. Damien Wolfe and Miss Cassidy Lawson standing in the botanical gardens of Dublin. This is long after the building has closed. However, no guards, no docent, no individuals of any repute seem to populate this building after it has shut its doors for the evening. More aptly, you stand in the center of the garden, in front of you there stands a great oak tree, around which you would almost assume the garden itself would be built. A gnarled oak that extends its way, it must be a good 35 feet high, into the air, towering over its surroundings, with branches and leaves that even in this oppressively hot time of year seem to lend cool shade to all around. There is a momentary glimmer, a glow of green light from the tree itself as you see the bark split open, as if being torn apart by two invisible hands, the tree opening until in front of you there stands a gap large enough for you to comfortably enter without having to duck your head.
Cassidy would kind of look to Jason and Damien.
Damien.
I know. Sorry. It says Jason on the bottom of the screen. Sorry. She would look to Damien and kind of motion for him to go ahead.
Damien, who took the scene in for like half a second, just nods to her and walks through.
You find yourself falling for what seems to be about 10 seconds or so. You feel the weight from under you leave, or you feel the ground from under you leave, until your feet once again impact a hard surface. But this time you hear a kind of an echoey clack as if you'd fallen onto stone, perhaps. But there's no jarring, your knees don't bend, you don't feel the impact of your fall. In front of you, there is what appears to be for lack of a better term, what appears to be a curtain, a screen, an awning that appears to be made of lichen and ivy that has grown down from the ceiling, covering some kind of entrance.
Cassidy will, take the first step and kind of pull back the ivy curtain, so to speak.
At which point Damien gives her a nod, not wanting to have accidentally, pissed off anyone, and walks through, smiling.
Yet Cassidy will hold it open for him before she steps in herself.
As you step inside, or rather, good evening and thank you. My apologies. As you Sorry, someone wanted to say something to me. As you step out, you become immediately aware of a glow and illumination upon your faces. You feel a warmth. It is not the kind of the warm, humid warmth that you've stepped from. It is more beatific. You are standing, from your perspective, Damien, in a huge, expansive garden. At your feet, wildflowers of many different hues, colors, and patterns come up to around your knee in this vast meadow of multiple blooms. You see off in the distance what must be many miles distant, but still quite close. Its size is magnificent. An oak tree that must be over 100 stories tall, huge and vast. Its trunk in the circumference is as large as many skyscrapers. The tree itself seems to glow and glimmer with its own light, as in its eaves and branches, where acorns grow, the acorns provide the illumination to this place, as you find yourself standing under a verdant purple starlit sky. Stars that no man has ever named hang above you.
Damien just takes a deep breath, and for the few moments that remain before he's ushered further forward, just marvels at the view. A small tear even forming in the corner of an eye, which he quickly wipes away, but an expression of wonderment on his face.
I'm assuming we are back in Kelhaya.
Mm-hmm.
She will kind of look to Damien. Well, welcome to Kelhaya.
It's magnificent.
She is looking for her antlered friend.
You will hear a soft shuffling and a kind of a snuffling noise as moving through the brush. Damien, okay, you're an archaeologist by trade.
Correct.
So some information for you.
Mm-hmm.
If you want, you can look them up online. They are a thing. You will see a huge. Now, when I say huge, I mean it must stand 16 feet at the shoulder. Huge. Sorry, just one moment. Deer coming towards you, very very slowly. Now, these are basically great Celtic elk. This species has been extinct for it went extinct a very, very long time ago. I believe, if my recollections are, we're talking like four or
Yeah,
five thousand.
yeah. Irish elk, I
You see
happen
this?
to know about it. Yeah, exactly. It's huge. Its antlers probably big enough that they could scoop up a man without any trouble. The expression, well, the glitter in Damien's eyes can only be equivalent to like a kid that has seen somebody perform a magic trick most spectacular. He's a little slack jawed at that. Yeah, the jaw is definitely hanging down a bit. He's
The
transfixed.
the elk makes its way towards you. As you pointed out, its antlers are so wide and large that they could probably he could easily, with a flick of his head, toss you very very far. But he comes and what he does is he settles down on his haunches. So essentially, he lays down in the flowers.
Cassidy is going to rummage through her bag and pull out a couple of apples and go over and give them to him.
He will eat the apples like an apple at a time. That's how big his, that's kind of how big his mouth is. So, but he will quite happily take the apples. Like, bear in mind, because I actually did this for my own amusement. This picture is actually to scale. The bear is roughly the scale a normal brown bear would be compared to this.
Oh dear. Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Seeing Cassidy do that, Damien starts rummaging in his leather satchel and has got some dry apple rings uh, on him, and will very slowly, with the apple rings in his hand outstretched, slowly walk towards the animal.
The animal, he looks at Damien and it blinks its eyes, like blink, blink. For it leans forward a little bit, and it doesn't take the food, but it sniffs Damien, like taking in deep inhalations of his scent.
Mm-hmm.
Before it will seem satisfied, and will take the offering of dried apples of dried apple. Once again, very slowly it chews everything. It's very methodical.
Mm-hmm. Damien is just smiling from ear to ear.
when it is done being fed, it gestures with its head, like it flicks its head over its shoulder twice.
Cassidy nods. She knows what it means. Want to go for a
Did
ride?
do I? Of course.
She will smile and pet the elk as she climbs onto his back.
Damien will try to scoot behind Cassidy.
As you both get on, it stands up. It doesn't even. You can tell it registers your weight as being there, but it doesn't affect him. As it stands, and it starts to make its way. It's not in any kind of great rush, so it starts to make its way very slowly through the verdant flowers that are surrounding it, appearing to be happy to take its leisurely way. As you walk, you will. Sorry, as you walk, you will eventually come to see the fact that there is an entire herd of these deer that are that are basically making their way through the vast expanse of flowers, grazing.
Damien is just taking it all in, and at noticing the herd just stares at them with wonderment. Probably a few moments more than would be comfortable.
They are lovely, aren't they?
That's Irish elk. Those are Irish elk. Please pinch me. Please tell me I'm not dreaming.
You're not dreaming, no. And I won't pinch you.
Damien pinches himself, satisfied as the pain registers. He is indeed seeing what he's seeing.
Eventually, you will come across the scene as is shown here. You'll be standing in front of, or the elk will be walking towards a great expanse of water, a waterfall cascading down from a great height above you into a pool. However, it's very interesting. You will see the water enter the pool. However, the water, as it spills in, does not create even a single ripple anywhere on the flat, placid, almost mirror-like expanse of the pool. And you will see standing in the center of the pool on the water, his feet on the surface of the water. This individual. He's looking down.
Yep.
He's looking down rather intently into the pool.
Damien will recognize the figure from the first I Shall scene, where following figure ripped a breach in the protection. So he'll just go silent and be very observant and basically ready to act any moment.
That.
The elk. Sorry, I will point out that
Go ahead.
as you get to the side of the lake, or the side of the lake, the elk will once again get down on its haunches so you can easily climb off his back.
Yep, we'll
Cassidy
do that.
will give him a rub and a scratch behind the ear.
You'll notice he stays there. He doesn't move. He just kind of stays hunkered down there. You would assume he's staying for the return journey.
Yep, and she places a couple more apples down for him.
Yeah, Damien gives the Irish elk a good scratch behind the ears and gives it a small bow.
It inclines its head to you. Clearly, it understands your actions in the sense of it has an intelligence that is more than animalistic.
Gotcha.
Mm-hmm. But you were going to say something,
Meet the keeper. Are you ready to meet the keeper?
Yes.
She nods, but she will wait and let him take notice of them. She can see that he's somewhat distracted by whatever he's looking at in the pool.
Damien waits patiently.
Question: do either of you look into the pool?
Probably more by accident than by design, sort of looking at the figure of the keeper and then the gaze slowly wandering down to the area he seems to be looking at.
All right.
Cassidy would also look into the water.
As you both look into the water, two things are going to happen. One, you will see a scene of a great book, a huge book, a book that has the weight of ages surrounding it. But you will see the parchment on the book is disappearing, almost like it's being eroded, it's being corrupted, and it's ceasing to be. And in the process of this, you both feel yourselves, on an oddly metaphysical level, being unwound and unraveled. Please both make me a willpower roll, difficulty 8.
Shayna, if you could do that for me. And that would be willpower 10.
I'll roll your willpower for you, Robin, so Shanna can roll around.
Thanks, mate.
Wow, 6 successes.
Yes.
And Cassidy has
And
3
3
successes.
for Cassidy.
You managed to both fight off this sense of you managed to fight off this power that is trying to rewrite you on your fundamental level, or even your perceptions of your own fundamental level. Um, until what happens is, in the blink of an eye, because he was standing in the middle of the lake, the keeper will be standing on the bank in front of you, and you will both be thrown back away from the water about 15 feet or so, landing on the soft sand of the bank. But basically, he like repulses you back, if that makes sense.
Yes.
So yeah, it'll knock the wind out of you, but it won't actually do any damage or anything
Fair
melodramatic.
enough. Fair enough.
This is probably a bit
That
of a shock for Cassidy. She's probably not
that
seen
was a
him do that
mistake.
before, at least not to her.
Okay, not look at the water. Got it.
It is more so he contemplates. The voice comes from under the hood. For the record, it's really interesting. He's not speaking English, but your brain is translating what he's saying into English. If that makes sense.
Yes, noted.
He will say, "It is not necessarily to not look in the water. It is the fact that you were not prepared for what I was viewing. And in those moments, you made yourself vulnerable."
Sorry for the rude interruption, Keeper.
Does
It is fine.
this have something to do with the stories? The ones that are being erased and changed?
He nods his head. Yes and no. They are not being erased in the manner that you would understand erasing. You would think of erasing as ceasing to be, but that's incorrect. If you were to view it more as changing, that would be more correct.
Rewriting them, maybe.
Do you know the value of a name, Mr. Wolf?
Probably not as much as I should, but I remember the old tales, the reason why I go under this family name in the first place.
He holds up his hand, and an orange appears in his hand, and he says, "What is this?"
An orange?
Why is it an orange?
Because we, at least the English-speaking peoples, at some point decided to call this type of fruit an orange, so that we would have a name for it.
I see. Now, what was it? What would it be if What would it be if I was to tell you that this was in fact a pear? Your plans for tomorrow? No.
Well, 2 years ago, I would have said it would still remain an orange, but things don't quite work that way they used to do 2 years ago.
Now, let me ask you on a grander scale. What would it be if I was to change the meaning of an apple or the meaning of an orange to the meaning of a pear?
I guess people would start referring to pears as oranges and oranges to pears.
And then at what point would the orange become the pear?
I don't know.
He looks to Cassidy and he says, "Do you understand?"
Yes, I think so. They're being changed on a fundamental level, the way we understand them, anyway, to be something they're not.
Allow me to ask you another question, Mr. Wolf. What is the difference between a character in a book and a god?
Oh. People believe that the character in the book isn't real, or because it's made up. However, under certain circumstances, the same could be said about certain gods, but people believe that they are real. So
Could it not be
belief, I
said
would say.
that belief is an interesting concept? I have made some great study of belief. If I was to tell you categorically that the Bible, this book that preaches the new God, the God that came from the East,
Mm-hmm.
was true, and you were to read the book and believe it was true. Now, belief stems from wonderment, a concept that, if true, the nature of faith is inherently the ability for humanity, the grand collective unconscious, to give life to something because it is thought of, because in it we place a small fraction of ourselves through our belief. So inherently, the only difference between gods and characters within a book are the lenses through which things are focused.
I see. That's why egregores exist, these manifestations of stories, like the Monkey King, for example.
Yes. They exist because mankind has given them the credos to exist. Because our faith, our belief, the energy that we impart onto the universe through our creative thought gives them the ability to exist.
I don't remember who it was that explained that to us some time ago, but
So now, consider, if you would, what would an individual gain by the ability to change the story?
The individual would probably gain the ability to shape the story in the way he or she would like it to pan out. and not the way the author wanted it.
The ability with the flick of the pen to turn an enemy, to turn a hero into a villain, to turn success into failure, to turn love into hate. And then for humanity to begin to call that orange a pear.
Wait.
Oh,
This has happened with Darcy. Could this be?
wait. We know who was responsible for Darcy ending up the way she did. That was. May I speak
Could
his
this
name
be
in this place?
Asmodeus?
Yeah.
No,
Oh wait. He also said this wouldn't be the end of it. That he would.
you are
Oh
also
no.
quite, you are also quite incorrect, Mr. Wolf.
Oh. Hmm?
Miss Ellsworth was responsible for the fate of Miss Ellsworth.
She angered Anansi, her story keeper.
And the book was thrown away and picked up by Asmodeus. Yeah. Who then.
Picked up
Yeah.
by Darcy, who burned it.
Oh, and that. Oh. Oh no.
That's how Asmodeus got his hands on Darcy's book.
The keeper raises his hand and he flicks it, at which point you become imminently aware of a very interesting thing. There is a golden cord. Now, you've kind of seen this cord before, Damien. It's like it's like the cord of your fate. Every person has one.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
Basically, he flicks it, and you become imminently aware of the fact you can see it. And he says, "Every moment you are within the river of fate. Every moment that you breathe, every moment that you step, every moment that ticks away. Every moment is recorded in the grand tapestry. It has many names. Many people have called it many different things. But there is always someone whom writes your fate, whom writes what you have done, whom writes your story in great books. That is the simple nature of things. The entity whom you name Anansi, for that is indeed one of her names, is one such keeper of stories. In total, there are four. Each one of them keeps their archive, and then it is all fed into the grand grimoire, the grand repository, the Sanctus Cyrilius, the story of stories. And that is
Hmm.
the story of our world.
Hmm.
There is one very interesting thing you will notice, by the way, Damien. The
Yep.
keeper does not have one of these threads.
Huh. And yet I see you have not such a thread.
Out of character question, is that because he has already ascended and come back?
That is entirely correct. His story ended until he forced it to begin again. Well done. I was wondering if anyone would ever catch that.
I had my suspicions.
Hee hee. I is smart sometimes.
Someone has already taken one of the four books and is now rewriting things. This is why your stories have changed. Their identities have been stolen because the belief that they were once being fed is now being fed into other entities.
Is that why we can't get a hold of Mr. Grimm?
Mr. Willem Grimm. That oh, that might explain it.
Yes and no.
Either that or he's too busy to take the phone. That could also be the case.
No. I said that there were four keepers of stories. Originally, there were five. However, one of them lost their way. They became angry and they became demented. They became twisted and they became wrong. Their stories became horrific. They twisted humanity for their own amusement. Mr. Grimm, Wilhelm Grimm, whom in his time mastered the names of several stories, locked that entity away in a book.
A white book by any chance?
It is the book that you think it is, yes.
Oh, the one we were surreptitiously whisked into. Yeah, I remember.
You experienced the first chapter. Mr.
I,
Grimm
I, mhm.
himself is now unfortunately also trapped within that book at the concluding chapter.
So
Oh,
to get him out,
shite.
we have to go in.
Yeah.
Yes. But also, there will come a choice. It may become the point where you will have to release this demented avatar of stories in order to. You will notice he stops mid sentence and he doesn't continue.
She
Really,
gives him
you
a
could tell
curious look.
he might have wanted to say something, but he might know the future, but he can't tell you because it will influence the future.
Some things have to remain untold.
There's a nod of the masked head, like he is agreeing with you. There were 5 books. The 5th book of the Demented Avatar was taken and locked within a vault, locked far underground, locked within a city that is no longer a city, in a place that is no longer a place, where all stories may begin, yet none may go to die. Locked where once fine balls were held on moonlit nights, where it was the fairest of the folk came to die and came to dance and came to die. This was the way of things.
Intelligence enigmas to figure out what he's talking about?
Yeah, you can roll intelligence niggas. It'll be difficulty 8.
Okay. Five. What is her enigmas? I think it's 2. Yeah. Two successes unless her specialty in book learning counts.
Book learning will apply here.
Okay, so that would actually be 3 successes then.
Okay. Your mind puts 2 and 2 together very quickly, actually, because you were there for this when this particular thing happened. There was a specific thing that recently was sold, a map to a specific city. A city where the ageless danced and no one ever died. A city that was meant to be at the heart of Tirnanog, the land of the forever young. The map to the city of Bethmara, where it was the fairy folk lived and stories were born.
Which Theodos bought.
Correct.
Her eyes go wide. You mean Bethmara, don't you?
That is what the 5th book is kept, yes.
There is a map that is said to lead to this place.
The
It was
keeper
bought by another mage.
The keeper extends his hand. Relax. There's going to be time to do this. I'm just doing this for cool dramatic effect. At which point you see a number of individuals moving out of the shadows around a house, just an ordinary suburban house, and you will simply hear him say, "Yes, I know. They are coming for it."
Oh no.
You see individuals step from the shadows. You see the sigil that you've seen a number of times before on the circus troops with that odd spider like symbol.
Shit. Theus is in trouble.
Ah, so a freshly minted hermetic needs help. Damn it.
This is not coming to pass now. It will, however, come to pass soon.
Damien is tapping his foot a little impatiently, as, inside he would like to run, but he knows better. He's keeping himself under control.
If the 5 books are gathered, the entrance to the Grand Book of Fate, the Celestus Celestine, will become available, will become openable, the way to be cleared. At which point the man who may sit at that book and may scribe whatever he wants into the world.
Oh no. Oh no.
We can't let that happen.
That they'll have to be stopped one way or another. They'll have to be stopped. I hardly dare to imagine what could happen.
There are rules, however. The story can never end, so they may not simply write all out of existence, but they may change what they will, and thus the story will continue.
Of course.
I will figure out how to stop them.
You'll have my aid, unequivocally.
I guess we need to gather some of the others. Because we can't do this just the 2 of us.
Nope. Definitely have to get reinforcements.
In order to open the way, the entity whom names himself Asmodeus must drink one of your lights to guide his way through the darkness.
He has a mage. If he's indeed part of this circus, this thing, he already has a mage in his company.
Yeah. Georgie, who I bet he was the one who made her turn into Nightingale.
Your friend Georgie no longer exists. Nightingale remains. Her story was changed. Her fate altered.
Oh,
And can we change it back?
For that, we would have to get the book in our possession.
Yes and no. Perhaps and maybe.
Well, and obviously change it does. Oh Lord, oh Lord, what have I got myself into here?
He will raise his hand, and you will see appear a torn page in his hand. It's like, and he will hold it out towards you.
Uh, Damien
Cass-
stretches his hand out.
As you both touch the page rips in two, forming two perfect pages.
Okay, Damien has a look at the page.
as does
Um, it's
Cassidy.
it's written in a language you can't understand, but as you look at it, the ink clots, congeals, and then reforms on the page until it basically forms coherent English. As
Mm-hmm.
it does so, however, you will find the fact that you are basically looking the. It is much too. It is a single page, roughly around, an A4 size page. So you're an ordinary large book style page. However, the writing on it is so vast that it would take years to read, but it is still legible. Essentially, there's been some fuckery with correspondence. The page contains more information than the page physically should.
Understood.
Essentially, what the keeper has given you both is your pages from that book.
Uh, um, Damien takes a few deep breaths as the realization washes over him.
As you do that, you will see on the page, Damien took deep breaths as the realization of this washed over him. Oh my, he thought. Oh dear, could this possibly be true? Literally, and it just continues to narrate your thoughts.
Uh, uh, at, at which point, Damien folds it carefully and really puts it in the deepest, closest to him side pocket. He actually at that point even takes out his how do you call it, his wallet. Actually decides to put it like in the deepest, fold it up again, deepest in, put it there, and then just closing his jacket and taking deep breaths to calm himself.
Cassidy is going to fold her page and walk over to the keeper and place it in his hand. Would you keep it safe?
He nods his head once. At which point you see the paper immolate, basically kind of like, but you don't sense it's gone, you sense he's just put it somewhere.
Um,
Thank you.
uh, I don't know if it were prudent for me to ask such a favor, so I shall leave it for the moment. He says in a very humble voice, sort of not quite sure.
A very long time ago, he says, looking at Damien, I wronged you. Or rather, I wronged you when you wore another face and went by a different name. But I remember these things.
Oh, I guess you're referring to a previous life, probably.
He nods.
Um, well, as I say, every death is a new beginning. I don't know what you did, and quite frankly, at this point, I'm not interested in to know. That's in the past. I'm currently in the present, and the present seems to need my aid as well.
As you wish. This is why you and I are speaking face to face. I have no interest in dealing most often with the affairs of mortal men, or indeed the world as it currently stands, save for when it is that I am called to do so. And these instances are few and far between by my own design.
Ah, what I want to say is I bear you no ill will for things that happened in another life. You may divulge or not, whatever you wish.
I stole from you something that you valued, because it is that I was commanded to do so by a man who did not know what justice was, who was blinded by his own desires. And for that, you have my apologies.
In behalf of my former self, apology accepted.
He reaches into the fold of his robe. He opens his robe, and he reaches inside, and you hear a shing as he draws something out into the light. He draws a sword out of his out of his out of his robe. A very very essentially probably considered a hand and a half sword,
A long sword in that case, yes.
and he holds it out towards Damien.
Damien's eyes widen for a moment, obviously processing what's happening, and he just gestures to the sword hilt and then gesturing to himself.
The figure nods. He says, "This was given or taken a long time ago. I merely
Uh,
returned it."
Damien, with the right hand, grips the hilt of the sword, gently trying to lift it out of the keeper's palm.
It's quite heavy, but yes, you are able to easily lift it. There is a very detailed coat of arms on the pommel. If you would like to roll me an intelligence academics check.
Yes. That would be intelligence 3, academics 3, please.
Can
I'll roll
Cassidy
it.
see this, by the way?
Yes.
I'm gonna go ahead and make the same roll.
Does Damien have any like past lives or anything like that? Remembrance or anything?
I didn't take any merits for that, so feel free to be as creative as you want to.
Okay. All right. You have 3 successes, and you do have a background in history, so I'll give it to you. And Casty, you have the same. That is the ducal crest, or the former ducal crest of the Duke of Cornwall.
It
That's
kind
the
of,
Duke
looks.
of Cornwall's coat of arms. I remember seeing that, like, must have been
The
5 years
former,
ago.
the former one, anyway.
The keeper nods.
Damien will inspect the sword, the blade, the general finish. Maybe if there is any patterning in the metal. Uh, yeah, trying to get a sense of sort of quality, maybe also style or period it might belong to.
The period, it's roughly about 1,000, around the year 1000 AD ish. It's rather difficult to date after that point, or to get an
Yeah,
exact date. It is a very high quality blade. It was clearly made by a master artisan of then time. It has a Latinic inscription that runs along the crossguard, which literally translates to "And I am the servant of the Lord; He is my strength." Um, the If you look at it on your Prime site, it does have a Prime signature, but you're not. It's a wonder of some kind, but you're not sure what it does.
yeah, he'll definitely be cycling through the sites.
Uh,
Prime, entropy,
has anyone ever
spirit.
has anyone ever told you who the keeper actually is?
Yes, Cassidy did tell
Yes,
him
yeah,
that
yeah,
the keeper
Do
is
you
indeed Merlin.
yeah.
do you Jason know the Arthurian myth?
I know the old Arthurian cycle, and if I remember correctly, this is the sword that was stolen from that Duke of Cornwall who got horned, to put it lightly.
Well, basically, Merlin, according to the old stories, transformed Uther, who was obviously the father of Arthur, to
Yeah,
resemble the Duke
to
of Cornwall.
resemble the Duke of Cornwall so that he could sleep with his wife, and thus Arthur. But Merlin made him promise that if there should be any kid out of the union, Merlin got the kid to be
Mm-hmm.
his apprentice
And
or something in that direction. Yeah.
and then
So
the night that Arthur was the night that Arthur was conceived in an ambush
yeah,
that was arranged by Uther.
yeah.
So there you go.
My character would know the details, and the full extent would dawn on him.
Mm-hmm.
He finishes examining the sword, unwraps the buckles on his satchel, because on the lower part he has been carrying a woolen cloak with him. He puts the sword in it. As he spreads out the cloak, there are 9 diamond-shaped red decorations on the inside and a white leather rimming going around, almost as if it was some sort of ritual object. He puts the sword in, wraps it around, closes both sides, and straps it to his satchel. And just very silently and very thoughtfully nods towards the keeper and
You
says, "Thank
you
you."
have held my you have given me your forgiveness for actions taken. However, a debt is still owed. You may call upon me for one service, and I will perform it. Any one that you desire that is within my power to grant, and it will be done.
Damien nods silently in acknowledgement. I shall keep that in mind. But as somebody told me, I shouldn't be too hasty. So I'll wait until the need is greatest.
Yes, yes. Moments, time, seconds that tick away. We are all made fools, no matter how old we become, via the machinations of time.
True. So true.
With that, the keeper will turn on his heel, and he will walk back out into the center of his pond, or the center of the lake, and he starts to look down. The elk kind of nuzzles at he nuzzles at Cassidy's hand, intimating time to go.
Cassidy would scratch his head and then kind of tug on Damien's arm.
Yeah, Damien follows without many words, or a bit lost in thought, you would say.
And with that, I assume they are leaving Calhia.
Mm-hmm. In that case, thank you players for playing, thank you watchers for watching. This has been another Scene in Darkness in Dublin. Have a pleasant evening.